Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down to the campfire for this short rest with me and my friend Andy! Beer, 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 beer. Hello, how are ya?
Hello. Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
From all the way across the other side of the world.
Yeah, what time is it over there?
Currently 3 p.m. New Zealand.
We are
Sunday.
the sun is down here. It's 9 p.m. on Saturday. So, what a time difference.
Timed it. Sunday's a good day though. I'll tell you. I'm not meant to tell people about the future. Like when you move to New Zealand, you have to sign like a whole like non-disclosure sort of thing with the government that you're not allowed to tell people about what happens in the future.
Don't tell me, but
Yeah, it's why the people of New Zealand, Australia never tell people when something huge and catastrophic happens in America. We're not allowed legally. But it's a good day, I'll tell you that much. Welcome to
good.
Short Rest. For those who don't know who you are, let's start with a brief introduction so people know who it is I'm talking to today. Who are you, Andy?
Heck yeah. My name's Andy. I am a local game store owner in Provo, Utah. I am a big nerd. I mean, if you own a game store, you make a business out of being a nerd, I would guess.
Yeah, it's all tautology at that point. It's all redundant. I think I own a game store in Utah. Yeah.
So business owner with my family. I have a wife and two lovely kids. A hardcore nerd since a very young age. That's a bit about me.
Nice. So that's who we're chatting with today. If you're here from Andy's community and you don't know who I am, I'm Robert Hartley. I am the Dungeon Master for a comedy group called Viva La Dirt League, and I'm a DM in my own right all over the internet at Robert Hartley GM. So, if we are having a short rest, Andy, the implication there is that we must be on some sort of a quest, right? You don't need a short rest if you're not actually questing. Otherwise, it's just called downtime. So we must be on some sort of a mission. What do you reckon we're doing, and why do we need a short rest? Are you gonna help me? Gonna help me GM right now? You're gonna help me world build. What's going on?
Yeah. All right. We had a mysterious message from a stranger to meet us on the obsidian shores far off, and so we have to travel to a very remote and desolate place.
Okay.
But they have promised us by name that it would be something that could change the rest of the known world. And a very interesting, a very interesting note that it would mention something personal to us, and we know this isn't just like a spam or something.
Yeah, just flyers to all adventurers, just like scattershot and be like, look, I can change the world, please, somebody adventurers. No, this one was personalized. They've got our information from someone. If we're having a short rest, what are we eating and drinking on this short rest? What's your go-to drink when you're a character in a D&D game or something? What do you like to? Is there something you order from a tavern whenever you're drinking, or is there?
It's got to be my depending on what character I'm playing. One of my favorites was a bard named Skidamarink. He was a gnome, and he would definitely like to get drunk. So he was probably packing his own mead or just a little whiskey on the side sure.
I've played characters that just drink whatever's cheapest, and I had a gnome once that would, as long as it had some sort of fruit in the name of it, he'd drink it. Like he'd only ever drink something that has the fruit in the title. Like he'd be fine with apple juice, but he'd also be fine with like sparkling grape wine, and they'd be like, just as long as its name's a fruit, I'll drink it. What about real life? You got anything for beverages? Real life, just water?
Mate has been my absolute favorite. It's a tea a lot of people drink in Uruguay, Brazil,
Yes.
Argentina.
Yeah, I've had it before. I had a Paraguay girl staying with us as like an exchange program for a year or so, like decade or so back, and she taught us about mate and how to drink it and stuff. Like it comes with its own special like teapot looking thing.
The straw you drink out of is the filter, so it's
Yeah.
just raw leaves and then the straw filters. Very it helps wake up. It's my thinking juice, is what I call it. When I drink it in the morning and I need to wake up, it's very good.
And where do you get it? Like, have you got some Uruguay, South America family that have taught you about it?
Yeah, my wife, she's from Uruguay, so she's the one who got me hooked on it. It's pretty hard to find unless you know the specific stores. So luckily, she was able to find like a very small hole in the wall restaurant, not a restaurant. It's a shop that sells imports from
Nice,
uh, all across South America. So we're able
nice.
to get it. It's a hard find. So when we do buy it, we get like 3 or 4 months worth, and then we're set. Um, yeah, love mate.
That's cool. What about snacks? What you got any favorite snacks when you're a D&D character that you go to, or is it just rations for you normally?
The I mean, a well baked loaf of bread
Oh yeah.
you can't go wrong with. And like I love baking bread, so that's me in real life, and like just the smell of a
Do you
well
do
baked
it? Do
loaf.
you do the whole thing by like from scratch, or do you use like a one of those that kind of just chuck in the dough and it does it all for you and has
You know,
bread
like
in the
I
morning?
don't go and harvest the wheat myself, but yeah, I'll buy the flour and the yeast, and I'll mix it in a bowl, and then I'll put it in the oven. So yeah.
What sort of bread? You going like sourdough, or you doing like multigrain, or just regular white bread?
Just the regular white bread. Eventually, I want to do sourdough though.
Uh,
Sourdough is really interesting. The idea that you have to have your own like bacteria
Starter,
culture,
yeah.
and it stays through. Really interesting.
Didn't you manage to evade the lockdown without getting into sourdough? It was pretty much everybody, all everybody was doing. For every time I talked
That's
to anybody,
true.
it was like, well, bacon sourdough now because I'm on that train. Well, we are set up for our short rest. Then we're having a rest on our way to the Obsidian Coast. Was it
Yeah, the Obsidian
the
Shores.
Obsidian Shores? We're on our way to the Obsidian Shores. So let's start with the name. I like to begin talking with my guests about where they got the idea for the name of their thing. So your tavern is called Geek Together, and your
Yep.
online socials for that is called We Geek Together, of course. Where
hmm
where did the name come about, and what was the other options on the cards when you were deciding on it?
Yeah, so yeah, we geek together. It started off as a silly cosplay channel for me and my wife. We met because of cosplay actually,
All right,
and
cool.
so we're both very passionate about cosplay. And so hey, let's do a Facebook page about it and a YouTube channel. And in fact, if you go to the We Geek Together YouTube channel and dig deep enough, you'll find some pretty embarrassing videos of us running cosplay skits. So it started as that, and then life got busy. And we never did anything too much with it. And then we started to do. I started to do a side business with my brother, um, and we were like, "Hey, I have this Facebook page and YouTube page under We Geek Together, and we're selling kind of geeky things. So let's keep on going with that." But it
And that
has
was your
kind
that
of,
was your brother's braces, right? The leather braces that he started. Is
yeah.
that what you mean? Yeah.
But the name, honestly, it evolved from We Geek Together is just me and my wife geeking together to be much more like it's kind of like our how we approach it. Like I want to be able to geek out with other people, friends,
Hmm.
acquaintances, strangers, and other people should be able to geek out. And so now it's a really fitting name, honestly, for our
Hmm.
game store, I believe.
Oh, for sure. And the funny thing I notice is that I think the British, Australian, New Zealand culture and the American culture is different in how we use the words geek and nerd. I think they're exactly the opposite. Because I think for me at least, nerd is what I self-identify as a nerd because I'm into all things D&D and maths and video games and stuff. And geeks to me are more the computer side of things, of like understanding like computer coding and being able to build this computer from scratch and stuff. And I think for you guys it's the other way around, really, isn't it? Like geeks are people who are super into like superheroes and Marvel and D&D, and you would call a nerd somebody who's more into the computer stuff.
Yeah, honestly, the words have become washed and interchangeable
They
at
really
this
have.
point. It's-
Docs as well. Docs is in there as well. Geeks, nerds, and docs. I think doc of the three, I think docs is the one that is least reclaimed. I see people
yeah.
self-identifying as geeks and nerds all the time, but I don't tend to see people saying, "Oh, I'm a total dork."
I think dork is really leaning into the socially
Yeah.
awkward, that kind of stuff, while geeks and nerds definitely are socially awkward
Oh
still.
yeah.
We can at least socialize with other geeks and nerds.
Did let me dead say. I'm pretty sure Rob's a geek and a nerd everywhere. To be fair, yeah, I'm into the maths and the nerd stuff. Yeah, Wraith's agreeing with me that geeks are considered the smart ones and nerds are like more into gaming. I think
Mm.
I'm a good and a neek. Yeah. So you consider yourself both geek and nerd, but geek. Did you ever consider other titles? Did nerd together, we nerd together? None of that ever thought. Geek just sounded right.
Yeah, yeah, geek was just kind of it. So we did when we got ready to open up at a game store. We did workshop a lot of other ideas like enter the dungeon
Hmm.
or the tavern or stuff like that. So we had some other ideas, but we honestly decided to keep with the We Geek Together because again, it kind of reflects our thoughts, not just a business name, like what we actually want to
But like
do.
the actual philosophy behind it all of like making a
Mm,
space that everybody can geek together. Everybody can geek out.
mm.
Yeah, I love it. It definitely works for what you're going for with the business. So tell me about the business. You said that it started because your brother and you started. Well, your brother was doing some leather working, some leather braces. You already had the Geek Together platform, so you were like, let's just work together. And then how did that evolve into let's have a physical gaming store tavern space in a huge mall in Provo?
Yeah. So I got a 3D printer, and to justify me spending a few $100s, I was like, "Don't worry, sweetie. I'm gonna sell stuff with my 3D printers. So this isn't a
This is an
hobby. This is an
investment.
investment."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started 3D printing just some little knickknacks. And Everett was really passionate about leather armor. He was making leather armor for himself.
Mm.
And so I was like, hey, sell some of your extra leather armor. I'm going to sell some of my 3D printed stuff. And we started doing farmers markets. And hey, we made $50, $75 at once. We're like, we could pay for dinner. Let's keep on doing this. And so and the thing, what happens is you start learning every time you do one of those events. You start seeing what other people are doing. You start learning how to set up your displays. You learn how to talk to customers, and people will tell you what they want. They're like, "Oh man, I really want a leather piece that looks like this," or "Oh, have you seen this 3D print?" So people talk to you, and if you're listening, you can start to understand what people are looking for. And we're always looking to improve. And then I started working on, because I'm a forever dungeon master. I
Hmm.
started working on a deck of cards, the traveling deck, and it's a really I gave you a copy there
You did. I got it right here. The
so
traveling
you can
deck.
see. So the whole idea is I wanted to give a tool for dungeon masters to narrate overland travel to replace random encounter charts or hex crawls. It's just a deck of cards that you can shuffle, and then each card is a different day on the road. And it's a pretty unique idea. Like I definitely took inspiration from other pieces of work in games, but I hadn't really seen anything like in a card form, like a deck of cards for a dungeon master. So I did all the art, and I worked really hard, and it took me like a year and a half, and I had a physical product. And I even tried to kickstart it, and it failed, which, I didn't have any social following, so of course it failed. I just pushed through. I couldn't hire an artist, so I did it all myself, made the deck, and I had a physical product. And so I took it around to every game store I knew, and I was like, can I work out a deal? Can we sell this? Yeah. Wholesale, I'll get it you for $10, you could flip it for 20. And not a single game store would carry it. So it finally got to the point where it's like, I truly believe in this deck of cards. Like, I think it's a genuinely good product. Mm-hmm. And my brother and I were really starting to make money doing outside events. Now we're making $100 instead of $75. Yeah. So let's just keep on doing our own thing. Let's just start building our own business around what we're doing. And it took us about 2 years of doing outside events. We got into bigger events like FanX and Renaissance fairs, and we were able to save up enough to open up our own game store. So that was the start of the game store.
Wonderful. What an amazing way to start a business, to be like, I've got this product that I super believe in and nobody else wants to do it, so I'm going to not only sell it myself, I'm going to start a physical location to have a game store in order to sell this thing. Incredible start. So Andy, this Traveler's deck, what is it called? The Traveling deck. You gave it to us as part of like a bit of a swag bag of like, thanks for coming to Utah to help us out. Have some stuff, which was amazing of you. Completely unnecessary, but I loved the idea, the thought behind it was very generous of you. But then I started going through it, and I was blown away because somebody in the room while I was going through it was like, yeah, Andy did all this, and I was like, whoa, that's cool. Andy like came up with the idea, and they were like, yeah, and did all of the artwork for it, and came up with all of the rules for how it works and such. And I think you were right in saying that there's like a niche for overland travel in Dungeons and Dragons being kind of hand-waved away and forgotten about often. I think it's one of the reasons that a lot of people rag on Rangers as being like a crappy race, because they're like, oh, Rangers are useless. So, and it's like, yeah, because you keep hand-waving away all of the stuff they're good at, like exploring and feeding the party and making sure that you're not getting ambushed by random encounters and stuff. And if you're going to jump over 3 days of travel and just be like, yeah, you arrive in 3 days, it's no problem, then of course the Rangers are going to feel like they've got nothing for them. So I'll just read out a couple of the random ones. You've got, for instance, the 5 of Hearts is Traveling Trader. You meet a trader while traveling. For 1 portion of food, he will tell you a shortcut that will shorten your trip by a day. So you start off with a certain number of food for the trip and a certain number of days that it will take, and then you draw random encounters, and then obviously you can immediately draw the next one, or you can take a little time to roleplay that out. Okay, who is this traveler? Work with me to like collaboratively storytelling. Who's the traveler you meet on the journey? Why do they know a shortcut? What is the shortcut? You can work together with your team. And then Ace of Diamonds, Wild Dog. You find a dog alone on the road. You may feed it a portion of food. And I love with the diamonds particularly, most of the diamond suit is just prompts for roleplay. There's nothing, it doesn't say that anything happens when you feed the dog or you don't feed the dog. It doesn't like make that decision for you. It's just like, here's a thing that happens. You meet a dog, and if you want to, if you feel like you've got enough food to spare, you can feed the dog. 9 of Spades, Ambush. Raise your ambush count by 1. When I was going through this deck myself, I was coming up with ideas for like how I would use it and how I would use the ambush count and what that means for me and stuff. But I'd love to hear from you, having been the designer of it. What did you have in mind for the food and the travel and the ambush count?
So they would tell me how many things of food that they bought before they traveled out. Okay, you're going to travel for 5 days. How many rations are you going to buy? Cool. And then for the ambush count, every time you draw an ambush, I will let you know. We will run a combat encounter at the end of us drawing all the cards. And the more ambushes you have, the more dangerous that ambush encounter is going to be. So if you've drawn like 3, this is going to be a terribly bloody battle. But if you draw 1, like, it's going to be a pretty evenly matched kind of ambush.
That's pretty good. So you basically are trying to get through the journey without running out of food and without getting too many ambush cards. And do you have, when you were designing them, did you have in mind how you would handle running out of food?
It would be either you're taking points of exhaustion on the way in, or you're gonna have to then be using your skills
Class
to
features,
be able
yeah.
to get food. But that's going to add on more days to your travel, so you're going to continue drawing more cards. So you might draw another ambush.
Right.
Another cool thing about the deck, though, is as a dungeon master, I can stack the deck. So
Yeah, right.
if I don't want to prepare a combat encounter, I can just take them all out.
Bring the ambushes out, yeah.
Yeah, or if I really want to, I can absolutely stack the deck and make it, if they're traveling in a really dangerous area. The whole concept of a deck of cards is like you control everything inside that deck of cards, but it's randomized in that
It's
deck of cards.
randomized
So you
within
can
it,
even
yeah.
So you could take out the story beats that don't really jive with your story, or you can put more of the story beats that you do like. The hope is eventually I can release 2 or 3 more decks that have other supplements that you can add in
Right.
for different locations
Different
or
terrains
themes.
and things. Yeah, you're going through a hellscape. It's going to be a different terrain than meeting a random trader. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that each of the suits came with like a different idea as well. As I say, the diamonds is very roleplay heavy, and the spades is the one that seems to be all the ambushes and stuff. But it's not all ambush, because the 2 of spades here is sickness. You can choose one of the 2 outcomes. Either consume 4 days of your food as you wait to get better, or continue traveling but consume double food for every day. And it's like, so how many more days have we got? How many more days have we got ahead of us? If it's more than 4 days, then it's better to stay here and just have the 4. Yeah, clever stuff. And that's it. Just each of the cards very different, very unique, except for obviously the like 5 or 6 ambush cards, which are just raise your ambush by 1. But aside from those, obviously every card's different, every one's unique. A lot of it's just prompting, and I thought it was very cool. Very strange though that you managed to take this to so many different game stores, and all of them were like, nah, not interested.
Well, you did a really good job explaining it, and I think the problem I hit with it is it takes like a minute and a half to explain, and like people don't usually have that time,
Right.
and it's so if I can get you for 2 minutes and show you everything it does, then you're like, hey, that's a fantastic product. I might buy it, but
Yeah.
sitting on a shelf, maybe not.
So when you had the idea, you were like, let's get a store, let's make this a business. You immediately started thinking about all the other stuff you can sell, presumably, as well. You didn't just want an empty store with a single pack of cards in it. Like, what else were your original early products?
So since we had been doing the Renaissance Fair, farmers markets, we made a ton of connections with other local makers. GM Dice, Sea Dragon Cove. These are people who hand make their different products. So the hair wrap that I'm wearing in my hair for like a ponytail braid, this is a handmade product by Sea Dragon, and it's like a leather thing that keeps my hair all nice and straight. Very, very convenient. But yeah, he made the cutout for it, and so he hand cuts out all these leather wraps. And GM Dice, they hand pour all of these D&D themed candles. And so we made these connections with all these other local businesses. And so instead of doing like the normal game store route, because there's a ton of game stores and they're all kind of, selling the same board games and card games, I was like, instead, let's turn it more into like a Ren fair. Let's get all these really cool handmade things and these really unique items that you can't find. Let's put those in our stores. So those are the things you're finding more. We don't have shelves of games. We have shelves of leather armor and hair wraps and D&D candles and that kind of stuff.
Lapping costumes and swords and all sorts of things, masks and stuff. Yeah, it was really handy because when we did the world record thing that we'll talk about in a second, I was playing a character that was kind of running around table crashing, and I was like, I feel like I should be in a semblance of a costume, just like the hint of a costume or something. So I was like, can I just borrow this thing real quick? And I borrowed some cool shit from the tavern and was running around wearing that stuff. it was very handy. You mentioned there's lots of game stores already in Utah, which was something I also wanted to talk about because it surprised me to learn when I arrived in Utah how incredibly nerdy Utah is. I didn't know that about Utah. Like I think it was Critical Dice. It was Jason at Critical Dice that was telling me that about 45% or something of his US dice sales is Utah alone. And do you have as someone from there, do you have like theories as to why Utah is such a nerdy place? What is it about Utah that makes it such a haven for game stores and nerds and D&D people and Ren fairs?
Yeah. One of the reasons why I think Utah is very nerdy is because there's a very dominating Christian religion, which, hey, you can't smoke, you can't drink, no sex, probably not even watching rated R movies. So if you're going to cut out a lot of the day-to-day recreation, but hey, you could play as much D&D as you want. You can play all the video games you want. Like, green light there.
I did wonder actually, because like obviously I think it was mostly the Catholic Church, as far as I know, that was doing like Satanic Panic stuff of the 80s and like was really worried about Dungeons and Dragons being like a force for evil. Was there not a lot of that in like the Mormon religion?
There probably was. I don't know too much if the Mormon religion had a response to it. I know like my parents at the very beginning had the knee-jerk reaction, but as soon as like they actually knew what it was, they were like, "Oh no, this is awesome." So
that's just storytelling. Yeah. If anything, you're acting as the heroes taking down the devils and the whatever. It's not going to be making it worse. Yeah, it was amazing to arrive there and be like, wow, a lot of people here are into this sort of stuff. Because the reaction I got a lot when I told people, hey, I'm going to be a part of this like world record largest D&D game of all time kind of event, it's in Utah. Their reaction was like, why the hell is it in Utah? Like, what? You're gonna get more Dungeons and Dragons nerds coming in from Utah than anywhere else? That seems ridiculous. And I was like, well, maybe it's just because it's kind of central of the western states. It's central. You can come in from California, but you can also come in from Colorado. You can come down from Montana or Washington. You can come up from New Mexico. Maybe everybody around can be like, let's converge in Utah. Maybe that's the reason. And then I got there and heard this sort of thing from Jason that like, no, there's just a lot of nerds here. I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, so we've talked about it a couple of times, so we might as well like get into it proper. You currently hold the Guinness World Record for the largest Dungeons and Dragons game of all time. It was last year, and it was 1,227 people all playing the same game of Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you? How did you what's going wrong? Like you'd never done anything even remote. It's not like you held the record for like 500 people and then you were like, let's smash it. You'd never run a game for like 20 people and was like, this was really fun. What if it was 600 times as like you just went, let's do this, and ran all of the logistical nightmare that comes with that, and went for the record and got it like a madman. How did that begin?
It was literally 0 to 1,000. Like zero. It should have not been possible, honestly. But so we opened up our game store, right? October 2022. And the mall approached me and they said, hey, if you ever want to do something in the mall, we have some space if you want to, like, I don't know, do a Magic the Gathering tournament. You could set out some tables and stuff. And I had this idea always in the back of my head. Oh, it would be so cool to play a massive scale D&D game, like Lord of the Rings, Helm Deep, but you have like all the different tables on a different area on the battlefield. Like, that's just such a fun idea. And it's not a unique idea because epics are absolutely a thing in the TTRPG community where you play with a lot of tables. But so we open the game store. The mall says, hey, we can do that. I'm like, what if I brought in 500 people to play D&D? And they're like, we don't know what that means, but sure. Yeah, green light. And so suddenly it's like, hey, we could actually host an event, and this would be really good for my store because, I can't afford marketing on TV. How are people going to know about We Geek Together? Maybe if we host an event that is really interesting, that might get us some attention. And so we reached out to Guinness, and we were like, Guinness, what is it to like set a world record? And Guinness said it's going to cost you about $25,000 to set a world record. And we were like, oh, okay, that's a lot of money. And we took a really hard look at it. We're like, well, we could dip into our savings, and we could see if we could do it. So we luckily, we had to pay Guinness a month in advance. So it was like, that was kind of our do or die at that. So because we held the game in April. So January, I just started telling everyone. If you walked into my game store anytime before, I was like, have you heard about our game? We're doing a game. We're going to have 1,000 people there. And I had no right to say that because I had no clue if we would actually pull 1,000. But I had to sound confident.
Yeah, exactly.
I was rolling charisma checks all day. It was like we're gonna have 1,000 people. We're gonna set a world record. Guinness is gonna be there. It'll be official. You have to come, and it's a free event because we wanted to get as many people as possible. And so it got to the point where a month away.
You see, a lesser person might have gone, oh, it's going to cost me $25,000 US. So I will have 1,000 people there, and I'll charge each one of them $25 so that I'm not out of pocket from this. But you went, I'm going to absorb all of the cost of this, consider it marketing budget for my tavern, and
pretty much, yeah,
and not charge anybody even $5 to attend.
Well, because here's the thing, if I charged for the event and it was a train wreck, okay,
yeah, right,
how I would be done. My business would be absolutely wiped. I would get review bombed. I would get made fun of. I would just be done. And we've seen this, the Willy Wonka chocolate fiasco, and there was just another business that did a Bluey thing, and 1,000 people showed up to this hot dog place for Bluey hot dogs. And it was a guy in a onesie, in a Bluey onesie, and it's just crash and burn so hard. And so it was a free event. So worst case scenario, if we didn't know what we were doing, nobody could be too mad at us, hopefully.
Yeah, because it was free. Nobody ever gets mad about things that are free on the internet. As somebody who runs a couple of YouTube channels and a Twitch channel that are all free content, nobody ever has bad words to say about. Nobody ever feels entitled to the free content that they're getting. So you started out. You were like, you were telling everybody, I'm gonna have 1,000 people there. You were locking it in. You needed to lock Guinness in by March. You said for an April event.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what was it looking like? How were you gauging how many people were actually going to turn up? Because if you're not asking for people to pre-register, if you're making it a free event, how are you knowing how many people are actually on board?
So you did have to put in your email to register, and that's how we were matching up tables. So it was if we had 2 emails, one for Dungeon Masters, one for players, so we could see them trickling in. And I'll be honest, the month before March, we had maybe 100 signups. So we were like, oh, okay, we might not be able to do it. Each of these people
was bringing 10 friends.
Yeah, but we said we're going to do it, and Guinness is good to do it. So we decided to pull the trigger in March with about 100 signups, and we're like, hopefully we can get 400 more signups, because Guinness was like, if you have 500 people, you get the world record. You don't need 1,000. You just need 500.
Which astounds me, because who the hell has done a game with Guinness for 400 people? Nobody. So what if the record doesn't exist already? It should have been have 30 people and you get the record. Why 500? It seems arbitrary. Did they put a reason for the number?
I will not question Guinness's higher powers.
They have a monopoly on world record officialness, so they can do whatever they want.
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they said 500 people and you get a world record. And you were sweating at this point, or you were confident you could get it?
With 100 signups, I'm like, okay, with a month ago, we probably can hit 500. And I did hit a lucky break with some TikTok algorithms. We had a video hit 80,000 views on TikTok, so that was really fortunate. That helped spread the word. But honestly, the word was mostly word of mouth by the TTRPG community. Like, I would hit one person in a play group, and they would spread it to their entire play group, and then that dungeon master would spread it to his dungeon master friends, who would then hit all of their play groups. And so the 2 weeks before, or through March, we just saw exponential signups, and then it was about 10 days before we had to shut off the online registration because we had booked over 1,000 people. And we were like, we only have 1,000 chairs. Like, I didn't think it was possible. We only did 1,000 chairs.
That's insanity. That's amazing, though. It must have felt like such a weird experience to be in, to go from like a couple weeks before being like, we've got 100, let's see if we can maybe scrape together 500, to suddenly be like, we've got 1,100, and then now I'm run out of space for everybody.
Now the stress was, all right, are people going to show up? To now, like, oh my goodness, we better run a good game, like just an okay game of D&D. Because
suddenly different stress.
We have 1,000 people, watching us.
So what do you get for your 25 grand for a Guinness showing up? Like, what are they? They turn up with a clipboard and
So they send out the judge. Yeah, they send out the judge, and he's got the suit with the Guinness World Record on it. You get the rights to use the Guinness World Record logo in your marketing. So, hey, come to our event, and here's the Guinness World Record so you can see its official event. And if you are to sell merch, you can sell merch with the Guinness World Record on, but you can only sell it for that day. You can't continue to sell it after the event. You can only sell it during the event.
Oh my god! So you hold the record until somebody else takes it from you, but you still can't sell merch with it on.
Nope, I can't say
you better sell 25 grand worth of merch on the day that it's happening, then, before you even get the record. Because during the event is the time that you're trying to get the record. You don't even have the record yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. Oh wow. Man, this is what a monopoly does.
And look, I am not talking poorly about Guinness.
You will not question Guinness, no? Of course.
No, they did a lot. They truly did a lot for us. So
do they promote the event at all?
Nope.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So you officially got 1,227 people. Did you manage to seat everybody? Or was some people playing D&D standing?
Yeah, it was funny. We literally had some people taking over the food court because we didn't have enough space for them, so they were just cramming in on normal food court tables.
Captain Morgan says, "I remember that first game. I brought my own chair." Nice.
Yeah. So here's another funny thing about Guinness. They said you only had to have the people playing for 5 minutes. Like, then you got the record. We only care if people are rolling dice for 5 minutes. Afterwards, you guys are just having fun playing D&D, but it's not like you have to hit an hour of play time or have even a certain amount of dungeon masters. You could technically break my record if you get 2,000 people in a room and say, hey, everyone, we're playing D&D. Everybody roll your dice. And then everybody rolls their dice. And then, all right, we played D&D.
It's not Dungeons & Dragons! What the fuck? It's like Guinness didn't even look up what Dungeons & Dragons was before coming out. Oh, I'm not getting paid enough to look up what Dungeons & Dragons is. Anyway, I'll do all the bad mouthing of Guinness for you. You don't have to, officially. I'm never going to break an official Guinness World Record. I can badmouth them all I want. Sounds like they do fuck all for their 25 grand is what I'm going to say. I'm going to go on record as saying they need to fucking get their shit together. So this guy, did he have a clicker? Did he have a counter? Was he counting the number of people? Or was he just going on how many emails you got signed up?
we counted the people. So we had runners run out. We had everybody count the tables, and then we had to give him the numbers, and then he did the final math to do that kind of stuff.
So you also don't even need 2,000 people. You just need to be able to claim that there's 2,000 people.
Yeah, because while he counted all the papers we gave him, we could have easily like slid a few
more papers in. Yeah. All right. So that's why when it came to this year, to 2024, you were like, let's do the record, let's do the event again. We're gonna get even more people here, but I think I'm good on Guinness. I think I'm good with one world record. Let's use that budget on stuff that's more important, like flying out incredibly handsome, charismatic dungeon masters from New Zealand.
Exactly. Well said. Well said.
So after that first event, it was such a success. You got the world record. I bet you were riding that high for a while. Like, did you see a huge? Did you see the sort of return on investment that you were hoping for? Like, people knew about your store more. People came to you and said, "Hey, you're the guys who did the Guinness World Record."
Absolutely. To this day, people are still coming into our store and they're like, "Oh, I have heard about you guys." Because of what we did, because it hit national news, like NPR published it.
Nice.
Wizards of the Coast did a podcast episode about it.
Oh, cool.
On their dungeon, I don't know what their dungeon podcast was. So like it hit a critical point, which was very amazing for my tiny game store, because that. And the event itself, while it didn't pay for itself, absolutely the goodwill, the marketing, the people who came back and had such a positive experience has absolutely paid back many times over the initial cost of the event. So it's absolutely worth it.
And is that before or after you grabbed the store next door and sort of knocked it through into one big store?
So that was before, and it was because of all of the goodwill and the stuff that the Dead Wars brought in. We were then able to invest and double our gaming store. We had outgrown our gaming store at this point, so then we needed a lot more floor space.
Right. And did you have in mind when you were expanded? Did you have in mind what sort of expansion you were doing, like what sort of stock you were going to start doing that you didn't do before, or was it just like more of the same, just more space for it?
We're always experimenting with our stock. I feel like we'll always be doing that forever, because there's always new nerdy products and exciting things.
Yeah.
We just discovered lightsabers.
Oh, that reminds me. There was something I was meant to ask you while I was there that I kept forgetting to actually ask you because we were both so busy running around. You have a lightsaber over the fireplace that is signed. Somebody asked me who signed the lightsaber, and I was like, don't know. I'll have to ask Andy. Which signatures are on it? Because I was joking with the guy. I was like, "Oh, I should sign it. I should just like. I bet it's just people that have just. I bet it's just people that have walked up and signed it. Something that looks kind of vaguely like Mark Hamill."
I'm sad I didn't think about getting you guys to sign something. That would have been cool.
Next time.
Anyway, we have a group of Metal Combat knights in Utah. They're called the Salt Lake Crusaders, where they dress up in the full armor and they use real steel weapons and they just beat the absolute
out of
each other. And so they came. We host an event with them where they were fighting in the mall. So like you got grandmas walking around and this knight just is in full armor, just blasting each other. And so the lightsabers are so cool because you can fight with them. So they're in their full armor, and we gave them the lightsabers to fight with, and that was one of the lightsabers they fought with. So we had all of them sign it afterwards. So and it didn't break. So boy, do we have good product.
That's some good testimonial right there. So you discovered lightsabers. You're going to be implementing those at the store. You're going to be selling lightsabers a lot more.
I mean, we can't keep them in stock.
Oh, really?
We were out of stock, so we're gonna get another shipment in 2 weeks, and it's bigger than last time. So
nice. And do you have to make, whenever you do something like that, you have to make room with stuff that hasn't been selling so well lately? Is it things that have just like fallen off the trend? Yeah.
Always changing it, because when you come into our store, we want it to feel like interesting and unique. So you want to look around every time. So we're always changing displays. Yeah. always thinking about what to move, what that kind of stuff. I again, like, I love local game stores, but I think board games, and a lot of the stuff that they carry is honestly really hard product to move. And so I feel really bad because I see a lot of board game stores die, local game stores die, and I feel like it's partially because you have all these big board games that take up so much shelf space, and you're not getting a lot of profitability. And internet, I can buy a board game from anywhere online nowadays. So, you know, it's very interesting
to walk into your store. To make it look like and feel like you're in a tavern space with all this cool stuff that's going on around you, it does make it gives you a reason to be there in person. Like, yeah, I could buy like, it's the internet, you can buy anything you want off of some website or another, but if you look at that and go and not try to fight that, but then instead say, okay, what can we give them that the experience of online shopping doesn't give you? And to have like an environment that is fun to play around in, which reminds me, like, who came up with the idea of like having the little mini quests around the tavern? I was enthralled by running around trying to find fairy doors and leprechauns and the QR code on the wall that tells me to solve some riddle and find things hidden around the store. Those are genius ideas. That's the experience you're not going to get from an online store.
Yeah, that's my brainchild because. Like you said, walking into the game store, it needs to feel more than an online space or something I could do online. The quests are fantastic because it's something fun and free to do, but also you're going to walk around the store and you're going to see everything while you're looking for those fairy doors. So, like, if you're going to look at it as a marketing thing, having like little fun games and activities in your store that get people to move around is a really cool way of getting people to look around and shop at your product. But also, it's like, you had fun doing it. Anytime somebody comes into our store and they see the quest and then they bring in a friend, they're like, oh, you got to go do this quest because they'll give you a free set of dice. But I'm not going to help you because you got to figure it out yourself. And so, like, yeah, it's super fun.
So what was the sort of expansion rate of your staff? Like, you started off with just you and your family, you say, that kind of run this thing, and you own the store, but your family just help you out with it. How did your family fit in?
So it's me, my brother, and my mother who are the main three, and my mom has been absolutely a big heart of it.
Andy's mom,
from the beginning. Yeah, she, by the way, that was her highlight. That you would call her Andy's mom. She's like that. You
introduced her as my mom, and I was like, all right, what do I call you, Andy's mom? She's like, yes, please.
Yes, please. She absolutely loves that. So, she's absolutely the heart. She's the glue that keeps us together. And then, but yeah, it was us main three, and then we brought on, because I was 9 years as a restaurant general manager. I worked at Jimmy John's, a sandwich shop. I stole very nice one of my.
I discovered while I was there, we got Jimmy John's.
I brought him. I brought him. I stole one of my employees from there because I'm like, all right, Tom, I'm going to open up a game store, and I know you're a good guy, so you're coming with me. You know, sorry, Jimmy John's, you're losing two good people. And then I've slowly been able to not only hire other employees. Merge with other companies, so Sea Dragon Cove, GM Dice, these were other separate companies at Ren Fairs I met, and I really loved what they were doing, and I'm like, I feel like if we work together, it'll be the benefit for all of us. So we all merged, Sea Dragon and we, and then I have hired a whole team of dungeon masters, which is really cool. I have about 14 dungeon masters who we've interviewed and we've done test games with, and we know, hey, like, you're on the level, you're a good dungeon master, and so we can run games of D&D week or daily in our gaming tavern, and we know, like, it's going to be a good experience, and we can charge for this, and customers are going to be happy, and we don't have to worry about any weird DMs or creepy DMs or unprofessional DMs. And it's really cool to have that because now I can go. We just did OtCon this last 2 days ago. It was an autism convention here in Provo, and I was able to bring half of my professional DMs to this event, and it was like, cool. We just have 6 DMs ready to go at a moment's notice, and they're taken care of, and I know that they're fantastic. And that's so cool to be able to work with so many talented dungeon masters. So.
The players for those games pay the tavern and you pay the dungeon master, or the dungeon masters are working like freelance?
Yeah, so they're contractors, so they pay the tavern, and then they're going to get most of the share. We do like a 70-30 split. They get 70% of the cost.
Nice. That's a cool idea as well, and that was an idea right from the start. Like, if we're going to have a tavern, we're going to have spaces for people to actually play D&D, not just buy things.
I really wanted to support the TTRPG community because I had seen what all the other game stores are doing here in Utah. And they're really heavy in comic books and TCGs and board games and that kind of stuff. Nobody had really touched TTRPGs. And I love I love D&D. So I was like, let's do a game store really focused on TTRPGs. Let's provide a lot of resources like miniatures, maps, terrains, television tables. Let's have a tavern aesthetic. Let's make it really cozy, welcoming for players. Let's roll out the red carpet for D&D groups so we can support this unsupported group of players. Because I really do believe game stores are missing out a lot on the TTRPG scene. Most people play D&D at their homes or at a buddy's house. Like, most people do not go to local game stores to play D&D. That's not really the scene for D&D. And I think it's a missed opportunity that a lot of game stores don't really understand, because now I have so many groups that just play here weekly. And that's people who are coming in weekly, and I don't have to do anything. They just sit down and play by themselves, and then buy some snacks, and they'll buy some dice, and that, and they're reoccurring people, and I don't have to buy new cards for them, or I don't, I'll buy new D&D and new dice for them, but it's
and the great thing is that you have that communal corner of here's a shit ton of dice. Like, if you need dice, here's the dice that you can use during your game, and here's shelves and shelves of minis. If you need minis for your game, you've got them right here. Just return them. Just look after them. Return them after you're done with the game. It reduces the barrier to entry for playing D&D as well. Like, if you might not have a place suitable at your house, you don't want to spend a hell of a lot of money on the books, the dice, the terrain, the minis. It can you don't need any of that stuff to play D&D, but it certainly supplements your experience to have them. And so it can be a bit of a prohibitively expensive hobby if you don't have a lot of expendable income. But if you can instead just hire a space in a tavern for a session every week, makes it much more accessible for people.
And I really do believe that game stores should support the TTRPG hobby. Eliminate all of those barriers to entry. If it's a group that wants to play, there's a lot of college kids who do we want to play in our college kitchen or on our carpet? Or there's
a tavern.
There's a nice place that we could play. And so even we don't charge to play on our tables. You don't have to reserve tables. Just come on in and play. Have a good time. That's really important.
And right from the very beginning of opening the tavern, was it an actual tavern with the bar and everything, the non-alcoholic mead and everything, or was that a later addition?
I had met Seth before, so when we opened the tavern, I didn't have the taps set up. The taps took a year to get in, but we did have his bottled mead. And it's always been with the store since we've been open. Well, I'm telling him to quit his day job because he works a day job, and I'm like, I keep on selling out.
I keep selling out.
It's like, quit your job. I'm selling so much. I need you working full time to make mead, and we'll both be happy.
Was there ever a chance of it being alcoholic stuff as well? Because I imagine the Utah alcohol licenses are insane, right?
Not in Utah. If we were in a much more forgiving state, probably. But the fact that like minors are walking around in a mall, no go. Like,
Not a chance.
not
Yeah.
even a chance.
Yeah, I figured as much. Adds a whole extra layer. I mean, even here in Auckland, I've got a good friend who owns a game store in Auckland, Cakes and Ladders, and I remember them going through some headache trying to work out whether a liquor license was worth it or not.
It's a thing.
So, so you started out. You saw some insane growth. You had this successful, Guinness World Record that led to even more growth. You bought the next door store and knocked it through. It's an even bigger store, which does add to the dynamism of like walking around the store as well. Like it's you can be like, oh, what's around here? It feels more like you're walking around a mansion of going, oh, there's another room here that I haven't investigated, I haven't explored, and it gives that sort of discovering parts of the shop that you hadn't seen before, which was a lot of fun. After you had all of that, at what point did you go, let's do that event again? Was it like while you were doing the Guinness World Record, you were already thinking about the next time, or was it like I think this is a one and done, and then like several months later you discovered, I kind of got a hankering for it again?
We did it, and it was like, that's awesome that we did it, and then we took like 6-month break, didn't think about it at all again. But we kept on getting more and more people saying, that was so fun.
Right.
Are you going to do it again? And so it was about October or November that we really started to, all right, should we do it again? Are we gonna bring in Guinness? That kind of stuff. And so that's when we started to put out feelers. We started trying to make contact with people. I brought in some of the original people. I brought in Johnny, who did the original writing. So we wrote the adventure again, and I brought Dax, the head dungeon master from last year. I brought him again, and we were like, okay, let's try it again. We'll make it different. We're going to also, like you said, instead of paying Guinness, let's bring in really cool people instead. And that was an absolute treat. What a highlight. Not only for you to be there, but Jason, Johnny, and Duke. Yeah. It was so cool to have you guys. And yeah, let's try it again. So I think November is when we were like, yeah, let's do it again.
So Derek from How Not to GM podcast, or now the Dungeon Masters Block podcast, he was the one who reached out to me and was like, are you keen on this thing? Because I know a guy who's running some stuff. How did he get involved? How did that middleman situation come about with Derek?
Derek is absolutely amazing. He's been, I don't know, we're kind of friends. He did like a cool project, and I helped support him in the tavern, and we talk a bit about all the other stuff. So like, even he was here for the first one, and he's been following the game store. And so when I went to him, and I'm like, I'm kind of frustrated because I had been reaching out to a lot of people. I had tried to make contact with all these different people, and I'm still very much just a local game store owner, and I don't know how to make connections with people, and so it was really hard to like get in contact with people. And Derek's like, well, shoot, I know
a lot of people.
I have contacts with people.
I've got a podcast where I've talked to 100 people. Yeah, do I?
I'm like, Derek, please help me with this, because so Derek was absolutely like my knight in shining armor to be able to get a hold of you guys. He got a hold of Johnny.
Derek's great. Yeah, so he reached out and was explaining the whole thing to me, and I was like, oh man, timing's not great. Like, I've just come back from GaryCon, and I'll be going over there for Gen Con as well. Like, I'm already doing 2 trips to the States, and it's not cheap from New Zealand. Like, the closest country to New Zealand is Australia, and it's still a 3-hour flight away. That's how isolated we are. And Australia is basically close enough to the same country that most people outside of these 2 countries mixes up anyway. So like, our culture is basically like New Zealand. It's just West Island, New Zealand. Yeah, I said Australians, come for me. It's basically just the same place, only 3 hours away. And so that's how isolated we are. So anytime I have to go anywhere, it's like several $1,000s for flights. And so Derek said this, and I was like, I'm not sure that I can afford that. And he goes, oh no, I think Andy would find it in his budget to fly you out. And I was like, I'm that level. I'm that level of like, I'm well known enough that somebody's wanted to actually fly me out to a convention. Hell yeah, I'm in. If you're paying for the flights, I'm there. Like, and I'm so glad that I was, because it was incredible. It was such a fun time. It was like one of the most fun conventions, if we want to call it that I've been to. It was such lovely people. I was recognized there more often than I've recognized at any other convention so far. Like easily like 60 times or so over the course of 2 or 3 days. Was I stopped and gone like, oh my god, can I get photos and things? And like people telling me what my work means to them, which is always a good feeling. And just the friendliest people, honestly. Like the whole event was just lovely from beginning to end, and I got to see the store, which was fantastic. The actual game was a lot of fun to be a part of, because it's something so unique that I've not been a part of. I've never been in a situation with everybody play, like I've never been in one of the epics, one of the sort of multi-table D&D games before. So to be a part of that, and then to like also be in the most fun position of that, as far as I could see. Like, yeah, sure, the Dungeon Masters are having fun at their individual tables, but I get to run around as a gatecrasher, jump in on a table with no context and go, does anybody need any healing, or do you want me to shoot a bad guy for you? And then I shoot a bad guy and I roll a bunch of arbitrary chosen dice, and then I run away again. Like, it was so much fun.
Your story of how you like saved this party in midair is so funny.
Yeah, somebody was like, I would run to a table and I'd check for a couple of things. Upon landing at the table, I'd be like, right, are they on schedule? Does anybody seem like they're panicking? Do they need to be caught up to, like, do I need to heal anybody, sort of thing? And so I'd go, how's everybody doing? And people would give me a thumbs up, or they'd be like, oh, it's touch and go. And the Dungeon Master would be like, oh, nah, it's real bad, or people would be like, it's fine. And so if everybody's like, it's fine, they're doing fine, and they seemed to be on track, I had in mind like the Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 structure that you had for the game, and I knew what timing everything should be. Like everybody needs to be going to Act 2 about this time, sort of thing. If they were on track, I'd just be like, cool, good luck, and I'd keep moving. But if I got there and they were still on Act 1 when they were meant to be towards the end of Act 2, I'd be like, damn, what's keeping you guys? What's slowing you down? And I'd find some bad guy that's on the field. I'd be like, all right, I'll wait for their turn to end so I'm not interrupting somebody. And then between turns, like it goes to the next person, and I say, right, before you start your turn, you hear a twang and the as an arrow stabs that guy right in the eye, and he does this much damage with sneak attack and blah blah blah, and I'd take out the bad guy for them, and I'd be like, right, very very well done, you clear out the minions and then move on, because you're way behind schedule. Or if they were on track of time but they were just struggling damage wise and stuff, then I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to take something out for them because that'll get them ahead of schedule. I'll just instead give one of them a buff. I'll be like, sometimes I got to a table and everybody's like, oh, everybody's doing fine except this guy, and this guy at the table would be like, yeah, I just can't roll above a 10 today, blah blah blah, my initiative's always garbage, blah blah blah. And so I'd turn to that guy and I say, at this moment you see a little gnome runs out and he goes, don't worry mate, you can do it, and I give you inspiration. You can add this to your next roll, or you get to re-roll that thing, or you get to whatever, add a d8 to your next initiative roll. I just make up something arbitrary and help them out in a minor way and then move on. And it was so fun to be able to do that, especially because people would often just be like, who's this guy, why is he helping me, but I'll take the help. And then I got so many people coming up to me, like, after the game was over, like 8:30 or whatever, being like, oh my god, I didn't even recognize who you were until somebody at the table was like, oh my god, was that Robert? And then so there were some people who were like, who's this weirdo forcing himself into our game? Who's this random guy, random stranger forcing his way into my game? And then, like, after I left the table, they'd realize who I was and be like, oh, I want a photo with him. So yeah, lots and lots of fun.
And also, very important if you're going to be running these kind of games, because that schedule is super important. Yeah. And so you were absolutely like the wall breaker. You were able to run around and keep tables on time, and that's a little secret, some secret sauce if people are going to be running epics. Is is table crashers are actually
Yeah.
part of it, and you need table crashers.
Oh, for sure. One of my feedbacks to you towards the end was like after that second game, especially, you need table crashers on both sides of it. You needed more people for the bad guys. You needed some evil table crashers because more often than not in that second day, especially, I was running up to people being like, "How's things?" and they were like, "We're fine. We're on track." I don't know if it's because the Dungeon Masters just weren't going hard enough on them, or there was just a lot of lucky rolls. But like, I'd get to because we had the different factions of like, you guys need to go over and take down the airship, and you guys need to destroy the generals, and you need to do this, you need to do that. So many tables I'd run to, they'd be like, we only just started taking down the airship, and suddenly there was the announcement that the airship was already finished, and they were like, "Oops." So I was like, man, they really. There were multiple times where I was like, man, if I was playing a different character, I'd love to just actually help out the Dungeon Master instead and be like, at this point, oops, accidentally shoot the good guy and you take a bunch of damage and you go down unconscious, or you go to grab your healing potion and it's not actually there because I've pickpocketed you and run off. Like, if you had some table crashers that were also bad guys to try and like even it out that way, I think that could also help.
We had one villain, but that's absolutely some good notes because he could only one villain over 200 tables. Yeah.
I was hurtling between tables as much as I could, and on that first day I got to every table twice, maybe 3 times for some of them, and that was a lot to get through them all. So it would have been very difficult for him to get through everybody without feeling like he was rushing, because he had to have this air of nobility, this air of regal kind of nature to him, and it wouldn't have been the same for him to just like run around like I was. I was literally playing like a little gnomish rogue who can nip between people, and I had the mobile feet, and I was darting between things, and so it made sense for me to be running up to the table and being like, "What do you need?" and then run away. It wouldn't have made sense for the villain of the thing to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fantastic. Yeah, definitely something I want to play in next year for sure.
And yeah, I suppose that brings us on to the future of the next year. This is immediately already on your agenda again, to be like, this is a thing I'm going to be doing every year?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a fantastic time with this one. We learned so much. Like last year we learned so much, and I would say across the spectrum we improved on pretty much everything we did from the first game. Like we had, I would say, better game packets. We had better table crashers. We had we had you, and we had the other VIPs instead of just Guinness. We had before the event where you could go around and do some shopping and meet with people and that kind of stuff before the game even started, which we didn't do last year. So there was, like, across the board, this was such an ambitious improvement, and I'm already thinking about what are we going to do for next year.
And I think as well, one of the big things is, like, not only did you get more people playing this year than you did last year for the record. What was it in the end? Like 1,500, give or take?
Yeah, it was 1,475.
1,475. Just shy of 1,500 this year, and not only was that the case, but you also were able to charge for the event without people feeling like, "Oh man, you have to pay for things, man." Like the testament of people, of that many people showing up and being like, "Hell yeah, this is worth $15 or whatever it was."
Yeah, we definitely did get some feedback about it, but the fact that we had more people show up that's just fantastic. We're super fortunate that the community is as supportive of our crazy idea.
Yeah, for sure. So always the same sort of time, you reckon? Same time period of the year that you're gonna aim at, or have you thought about like, maybe we push it a couple months, or?
So timing, I like the spring kind of season. We are in a college town, so we're hitting right after college gets out. So that's pretty important. I don't want to wait too long because then they might leave for summer. So we'll keep it around spring. I really liked doing the 2 days, so we'll probably keep the 2 days. I'm like, I'm already thinking about next year. I'm this close to starting to write the next adventure. I'm already coming up with like the different key players and how it works out, and how the game is affected, because last year's game affected this year's game, and this year's game is going to affect next year's game. So just kind of what are the chain reactions from this game?
What about the other stores in the mall? Has anybody in the mall ever approached you and said like, "Hey, can I get involved in some way?" Like, I feel like you could turn it into a full blown convention in a few years' time if everybody's actually on board with it.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the mall, I've heard nothing but good things from the other stores in the mall. They absolutely love the event, especially the food court. I think I was told. I think the food court said that they had done more business in those 2 days than they do in a usual month.
Not at all surprised.
It was good stuff.
But the other shops haven't been like, I don't know how they'd get involved, but any of the other stores been like, let's do it, because I think there's another couple of nerd shops in the mall, isn't there? And have they gotten involved at all?
We're absolutely working with them, and I do want to work with them more as we're getting bigger. I want to be able to, because the Provo Town Center Mall has been kind of seen as a dead mall in the community. There's a mall 15 minutes away, the University Parkway Mall in Orem, that is it's a newer mall, or it's considered a newer mall. So a lot of people go to that one. So my mall is considered a dead mall. And then I'm like, I want to change that. Like, Town Center Mall is going to be the coolest
dead mall, you say, as the necromancer puts up his hood. Gets out his book of raised dead.
I mean, like, I have a whole soapbox about malls. I really feel like they're going to die unless they change over to a more community hub. And I think the Provo Town Center Mall is absolutely becoming one of those, which is so exciting.
That's cool. That's very cool. So tell me about like what you're outside of the Dead Wars and the yearly. Do you reckon you're always going to keep it as the Dead Wars because you've got that marketing around it and people know what that means and you've got the hashtags and stuff? Do you reckon it might be something else?
I don't know. So the Dead Wars was great for the first year because it was against Vecna, right? We were going up against undead, so it made sense for the Dead Wars. This was our second one, and this one was so risky because it was like, we're not bringing Guinness, all right? So it's not a world record, and we're charging money for this. So like, I was really worried that people weren't going to show up for this one. And people did still show up. So that means there are people that appreciate what we're doing. So we could change the name. And maybe we name it. So I don't know the answer to that one. I know the story that I'm thinking about is not related to the undead at all. So
right. might be a case of changing it up a bit. Makes sense. I love the idea behind not making it undead this year, because the first year you discovered, oh yeah, paladins and clerics exist. Let's make sure the monsters this year are not things that are immediately just nullified by two of the classes of the game.
Yeah. That was a learning curve.
That's funny. So aside from the Dead Wars and whatever we end up going to name it, what are you working on at the moment as Geek Together?
So I'm doing so many other projects. I'm super excited about, because I'm a game store. So not only am I doing TTRPG stuff, but I'm also trying to support other hobbies like trading card games. LARPs, I really want to support the LARP community, because if I think the TTRPG community is not supported, LARPs are like, it's like this skeleton that's like dead at the bottom of the ocean.
Fucking nerds.
And like, nobody cares about the LARPers.
Nerds.
Like,
I got into Dungeons and Dragons being like, oh man, am I really going down the slippery slope to becoming an out and out nerd? And then I looked at laps and I was like, as long as I've got something else to look at and be like, yeah, I may be doing this, but at least I'm not that. And now I'm looking at Lap. There's a good friend of mine who runs Laps, and he's constantly telling me about it. And God, it sounds so much fun. And he keeps telling me like, gotta get me involved with the Lap. And I'm like, I gotta find that thing that's even nerdier than Lap then. So,
good luck. But honestly, LARPs are so cool and they're so fun, but so underwhelmingly supported, especially here in the States. Like, I understand there's some really great stuff going on across the sea, but in the States there's hardly anything big scale, and so I really want to support these other communities. So we're constantly trying to come up with stuff. Like in February we did 100-player Yu-Gi-Oh battle royale, and it was very based off of the anime. We got 100 people together and we eliminated them all. It was a battle royale until we got one, and we even made like dual podiums. So it's very much anime. You had to get on the podium and be like, I summon the blue-eyes white dragon.
Yeah, Nixie was telling me about that. Sounds awesome.
But there's so many cool nerdy things that like I love and am passionate about, and I want to support those communities and do stuff that like you can't find or do anywhere else. That so many stuff. So yeah, that's a little peek.
Do you and your wife still do cosplay? You said that's how you started out. Do you still actually find time to do that?
I really want to do that. Boy, life is so busy. We've got 2 kids. We got 2 kids, and I'm running my own business, and she's a stay-at-home mom. And so one day when life slows down a bit, I'd love to get back into cosplay with her, because that's really special.
Yeah, I get that. So then let's talk a little bit about the future. Before we get into future talk, I just want to remind people that if you have any questions for me or Andy, or talking about Dungeons and Dragons, We Geek Together, Life in Utah, literally anything, you could ask us about our favorite colors or whatever. If you've got any questions for us, you can do that with the redemptions in the chat right beneath where you say send a message. You'll see little copper pieces. If you click on that, you see all sorts of things that you can spend those copper pieces on. One of them is simply, I think it's only 50 copper pieces, and you should have that by watching by now. You can spend those on asking a D&D question. That way it gets put into the redemptions list and it doesn't get lost. And then I'll ask all of those questions at the end. So let's talk future. Let's start with like kind of near future. I was going to say recent future. That's not right. The almost here. The on the horizon stuff, and then we'll get into talking more about like long distance, long term blue sky projects for the future. So let's start with talking about next year. What do you reckon's locking in? What are you happy to say? Like, it definitely will be this. It definitely will not be that, and it may be this. Maybe that.
So we're hitting summertime here. We're going to be doing a ton of outside events. Renaissance fairs, comic book conventions are really exciting. We got into San Diego Comic-Con for the first time this year, which is like one of the biggest conventions here in the States. So that's huge. As a vendor, we got in as a vendor. We are running the game room for FanX, which is Utah's biggest convention, and we're running the game room for Dragonsteel, which, if you are a book nerd, Brandon Sanderson, who wrote, they're going to kill me if I can't. Yeah. The Way of Kings, Stormlight Archives. His convention, we're running their game room as well. But we'll be selling at a lot of these events, and we'll also be doing games and stuff at this event, because I don't want to just be another vendor. I love the idea of bringing games or entertainment or fun things to do besides, hey, buy a set of dice from us, because again, like that's really unique. We just went to a Renaissance fair and we set up an archery booth, and if you could hit a target, you would get 5% off your purchase, but you could just shoot for fun. And so that was just super fun. It was like people are just like, can I shoot? And the confidence on a ton of people were like, hey, we could give you some hints, this is how you, and they're like, nah, I got it. And they pull back and it wouldn't like fire at all. And it's like, well, All right, well, you don't get a second shot for that discount. Sorry.
No, I didn't need the hints. But if you want to give me the hints now on the second time, just
Yeah, no, no. So that's the near future. And we're always trying to do in-store events too, because I feel like that's a really cool thing for our game store to do to have fun, to bring
Oh yeah.
people in. We're doing a really fun event we're doing at the start of next month is we're doing a D&D mixer. The idea is you come in, you pay for your spot, but you come on in, and then we've written an adventure where during the 3 hour game, you will get up from your table and you'll sit down at a different table with different players and a different dungeon
Cool.
master. So the idea is you're going to meet a bunch of people and some DMs. And this is to help you find other D&D friends and players. Because
I
like
like
if
that.
you don't know people, yeah, you could just mix in and you're gonna play at 3 different tables, so that's a potential 18 people, and it's also a great icebreaker, right? Because
Yeah.
like I don't want to go do speed dating, but like if it was like, hey, let's just go play D&D and we could just
Yeah.
have fun
Yeah.
together, like that's a fantastic way to meet people.
Yeah. What a cool idea. And when's that? You say that's later this year?
June 1st. No,
Nice.
yeah, June 1st. So a week and a half.
Yeah, that's very very near future.
Boy, we're always trying to do a big fun thing every month to focus around the store, so we can get the word out, and then we'll try to do a big thing every quarter. So the D&D thing was this quarter. We're working on next quarter. The first quarter we did the big LARP, like I said, where we had the Renaissance, the Salt Lake Crusaders. So we want to do a big thing where we take over the whole mall every quarter,
That's awesome.
and because those are super fun.
I was at the mall, like looking at your banners hanging from the ceilings, being like "Geek Together," and I was like, I wonder what the other stores in the mall feel about you having these big banners like advertising your store when you don't when they don't have theirs hanging up. And I thought, well, I
They
suppose
better
anything that
be
brings,
happy.
yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
it's almost like the argument of trickle down economics, where it's like if anything that brings anybody to the mall increases the chances that they go into their store as well, especially for things like food and stuff. So
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so what's the next big thing, the big takeover mall next quarter?
It might be another LARP because it'll be summertime and people are gonna want to be doing LARPs.
Right.
But the other thing I'm thinking of doing, and maybe I work with all the stores, is doing like a '90s day,
Oh,
like
cool.
get back into like a mall wide '90s day where it's like we really treat it like we're in the '90s and we'll bring in like some old bands and like have them play music, and then you can go around and like do different things, like maybe you can get glamour shots here, and really the idea isn't really to spend money at the mall, but instead to like kind of nostalgically be in what malls used to be, because malls
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
aren't the what they were in the 80s and 90s. They aren't that kind of
No,
hub. So
no. I mean, I grew up in the '90s. I know that it was often just, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to? For me, it was the White Rose Shopping Centre. It was called. Want to go to White Rose? It's like, yeah. And it was like, to do, you're not going in order to buy anything, not to. It's just a place to go. It's a community. It's a hub. It's like you just go and hang out with your friends there. Maybe you go to the malls. Maybe you do some window shopping. Yeah, yeah. It was very much not what it is now, because obviously now it would be, do you want to hang out on Discord? Do you want to play a video game together or something? A lot more
yeah,
accessibility to hanging out in virtual spaces. So
yeah. So I want to do that.
So how about for next year's big old like world record breaking attempt? Like what's locked in for that?
So nothing's locked in yet, but I do because I want the games to be different. The first game was amazing because it was a world record. The second game was different because it was 2 days and it was two different
Uh,
games, and it kind of like had ripple effects somewhat on each other. I am thinking, what if I had the biggest competitive D&D event where
Ooh.
I take half of the mall and you're one army, and the other half
Oh.
is a different army. And so then you're competing against each other, and it's not going to be like PvP, like you're not going to be fighting
No, but
table
you're
by table.
competing for competing goals. Like you're doing your own
Yeah,
quest, but like point based, almost like you these guys have achieved X number of their goals, and this you guys are lacking. You guys are behind.
absolutely. So you're racing to
That's
complete
cool.
objectives. And so we could even have like here's the green side, and here's the blue side or the red
Yeah.
side,
Then
so we could
then
decorate
you've got
each
your
half.
then you've got your table crashers, your roaming VIPs and stuff can be both good and bad guys because they run around
Right.
their own team and they're like, "Hey, red team, how you going? All right, I'm gonna shoot that bad guy for you. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna heal you. I'm gonna do this thing." And then they run over to the blue side and they're like, "The red guy runs in and he shoots you and he takes your equipment and he gives an extra
Exactly.
roaming monster on the field and then runs away." Yeah, that's some cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, so that's not confirmed, but that's something that's I'm baking up. Let's have the biggest versus game of D&D because nobody's done that yet. So
No,
let's
that's a
try
cool
that
idea.
out.
That's a cool idea. And it'd be a sim sort of time, sim locations, so everybody can start getting hyped about it now. You already know when it's going to be. You know where it's going to be,
Yeah.
and let's hope that it's let's hope that it's big enough that I can be flown out for it again because I would love to be there.
We would
I want to
love
be
to have
involved.
you. Yes.
So,
Yes.
what about like let's zoom way into the future now. Let's talk like blue sky projects, not things that you've got any sort of ideas, like actual plans to do, but like just ideas and things that you'd love to see. Where is We Geek Together going, and what would you love to be eventually?
Um one thing I would love to see is, and this isn't directly towards We Geek Together, but I feel like we could absolutely be part of it. I want to see local game stores kind of become a big uh, community hub for places because game stores are. I'm not going to say game stores aren't a community hub, but I feel like game stores are not all of them either. There's some fantastic game stores out there. But there's some game stores that are absolutely kind of stuck in the past and they're not welcoming environments or they're run down or the poor owners are struggling to make ends meet. I feel like game stores are it's the third space theory that we as humans we need a third space that we can go, we can be ourselves. That's not work, that's not home. That we
Right.
can meet other people, that kind of stuff. I feel like we're in a pandemic of loneliness, especially
Yes. Yeah.
after the actual pandemic. I feel like people are starved for in-person interactions, and I feel like game stores are such an underutilized piece in our in the in our communities. And I really want to see game stores improve. I want to see game store owners have better lives, and I want to see like nerd communities support game stores and game stores support them. And that's a lot of work because I feel like there's a lot of game stores that need to improve, and I feel like there's a lot of nerd communities that need to improve. And so I don't know what We Geek Together is on that. Like I don't want to go corporate. I don't want to open up 500 game stores and that kind of stuff. But maybe what I do is I can offer after like 5 or 6 years, I can offer like if everything I've learned as a game store owner, here it is to you as a game store owner. Here are the products we
Yeah.
have found. Here's the way you can train your employees.
Right.
Here's
Yeah.
some ideas for decorations. Like how do we foster better game store communities? That is a huge goal of mine.
That's
I
awesome.
don't know what that looks like, but
No,
yeah.
that's awesome, and it sort of lines up with something I've always been an advocate for as well. Like I think that one of the great things that organized religions does bring to the world, and Lord knows they bring a lot of nasty stuff to the world too. But one of the great things that they do is that there's a sense of community, and that's something that humans need. And I don't think it's something that is hugely prevalent in secular communities. I don't think that there is like a sense of a secular church almost. Like, I think gaming stores could almost be that, of like a place where you can go that is, as you say, like the third place, the place that's outside of work and home, where you feel like you belong, like in that group, in that community. And I've always been a big proponent of any space that allows for that sort of level of feeling of like a secular church is kind of always how I've always described them.
Yeah,
I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see that sort of idea behind not franchising We Geek Together and being like, oh, there's a We Geek Together opening up in this city, but like franchising the idea of what you have put, the fundamentals of what you've done, as you say, like giving out the tips and advice and the things that you found work, and making a community of game stores that can all communicate and saying like, this really works when I try it with my place, and then somebody else saying, I tried that and it really doesn't work in this city because we don't have the infrastructure to support it, and blah blah blah. Like the feedback and the communication between game stores to keep that sense of community working between the game stores themselves, not just with the people who actually come to patronize the game stores.
Yeah. That's a big that's a big dream of mine. Another thing I would love, because we're building our media presence, is like to continue to be able to build our media presence. In the modern day and age, people aren't really caring about brands. Like, I don't know, you don't really care about Nike, but if it's this person you care about, you follow, and they're working with Nike, then you're going to care about, oh, Nike's now, like, and that's why we're seeing like all these celebrity things, like the guy who did the McDonald's thing, or like, or that kind of stuff. So the idea of building a game store around our media and my people, like we're trying to do videos about our people and my staff and stuff like that. So when you come into the game store and then you see us, it's like, I saw him on TikTok and Instagram, and I saw Nixie on YouTube and that kind of stuff. So like you connect with us outside of the store, and then that brings you inside of the store, and you're like, oh, this is exactly what I felt like. And I feel like that's another future, that's another missed opportunity for game stores. I feel like some game stores are doing it. Some game stores, their marketing's great. Some game stores have not figured that out at all, and it'll be a struggle for them. Yeah,
I think that's kind of what we'll see in the future to come. Like the ones that have succeeded at understanding that that's what they need to do will be the ones that have the lasting power, the staking power. But we'll see, won't we? We'll see as the future goes. Let's get to asking some of the questions that were asked of us, and then we can wrap out. So Nexus asked, what was it that initially got you into D&D?
I had a roommate when I moved out of my parents' place. He I have a photo of him. I wish I could show, but I don't have it around here. Anyway, he's a fantastic nerd. He got me into Magic the Gathering, and he got me into D&D, because I was a pretty big nerd beforehand, playing video games and playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But he's like, oh, you got to try out D&D, and he did a one-on-one game of D&D, which, by the way, I think is the best way to convert somebody into D&D, is a one-on-one game. Before you just say, hey, let's get 6 people together and let's try to play. If you can do a one-on-one before, I think you'll have a 95% conversion rate.
Excellent. Good to know. I'm always trying to convert more.
Yeah. One-on-one D&D is the secret sauce. Do 1 or 2 games one-on-one, and then introduce them to the party, and boom, you've got somebody for life. And that's what he did for me. And I was like, I had no clue about anything TTRPG related. But after he showed me, I was hooked. I'm like, I want to be the dungeon master. What other systems are there? Is Call of Cthulhu? I love Call of Cthulhu. There's a system for that, and so I have gone far into the deep.
Yeah.
So much so that now I made my own product for Dungeon Masters, and I have a tavern.
Yeah.
So it's consumed. It's that meme of like, oh, I guess this is going to be my personality for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Oh, this is who I am now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very much the same for me. Like I don't tend to think about. I don't tend to believe in like the idea of destiny too much, but it definitely did feel like that with Dungeons and Dragons. Like it was something that I could have just as easily not ever discovered that it was me. Like if I'd have stayed in the UK and not moved to New Zealand, I would have probably been raised and lived the rest of my life in a very different kind of culture. I would have been less inclined to discover that I was a nerd because I wouldn't have necessarily found my nerddom among my friends, like the fact that I was just into generally nerdy stuff. I would have. I wouldn't have met the sort of people that I met that allowed me to go to like explore board games as a hobby and stuff. And I just think about sometimes like how different my life would be if I just didn't ever discover tabletop role playing games. And I think about how sad it is for some people. Like if everybody has this thing that they would be as passionate about as I am about TTRPGs, and then they just go their whole lives and never find it. Like, what if somebody is this passionate about rock climbing and just never tries rock climbing for any reason, and then just never discovers that this is their thing, this is their whole personality, this is what they are destined to be doing? Like, that would be terrible. What a terrible waste of your life to never discover something that you are this passionate about as I am about this. So hopefully everybody just continues to try things. Just get out there and try horse riding. Try pottery. Try some stuff and be like, wow, this is me.
And keep on trying. Like,
and keep
that's
on trying.
Right. Like, yeah, I found D&D, but now I'm doing LARP, and you're gonna do it too. Like,
that's it. Like, who knows? I always have to remind myself that 10 years ago I barely even heard of Dungeons and Dragons. 5 years ago, I was playing it, but I wasn't doing it professionally. I hadn't even heard of Twitch. So in 5 years' time, who the hell knows what I'm going to be doing? Who the hell knows what I'm going to be doing in 10 years' time? Maybe I'm not playing D&D anymore. Maybe I'm playing Pathfinder full-time in 10 years' time. Or maybe I'm playing maybe I'm a full-time Call of Cthulhu streamer. Maybe I'm not doing either of those, but now I'm a full-time fantasy writer or something. Who the hell knows what things can change in that amount of time? But I love knowing that I will always be able to pursue things that I enjoy and do so for a living, knowing full well that if I don't enjoy it anymore, I can always stop doing it. And if I stop doing it and I suddenly lose all of my followers because I've stopped doing the thing that they were following me for, then so be it. Like if I have to go back to working in a supermarket to pay the bills, I can always do that. I'd rather spend my life doing the things that I enjoy doing, and thankfully at the moment at least the things I enjoy doing is earning me enough money to pay my mortgage, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Joe Baby, sorry, just to answer the question from my side, in case you didn't know my story, Nexus, I've told it a bunch of times, but I'll give you the cliff notes. I kind of hinted at it just before. I didn't really know I was a nerd until later in life. I discovered board games. Then through board games, I discovered how difficult it is to get people together to play board games. And so I discovered watching people playing board games online instead to try and scratch that itch. I discovered Will Wheaton's Tabletop series. Through Tabletop, I discovered he played a session of the Dragon Age TTRPG. Through watching that, I was like, oh, I think this looks really fun, and I think this is what Dungeons and Dragons is like. And I just met a guy through hip hop because I was doing hip hop classes at the time. I met a guy through hip hop who mentioned that he was a dungeon master, so I got in touch with him and said, "Would you run me a game?" And as soon as he did, I was like, "This is my personality forever. This is exactly what I'm meant to be doing." That's how I got into it. Joe Baby asked, not sure if I missed this, but can we see or talk about the cards that Andy made? Oh yes, we did. You did miss it. We talked about these a little bit, but because you missed it and you're here now, I'll just briefly talk about them again. The blurb on the back says, a tool for game masters to use in any TTRPGs. The travelling deck replaces random encounter tables and hex crawls for overland travel. Each card represents a different day on the journey. Track food, danger, and days travelled in one easy tool for any game master to use. and it's very good. I haven't utilized it in my games yet. I will have to think of a way to use it. Here's a question: what does this card do in your mind, Andy? The one that says ambush on one side and food on the other.
You could put a dice on each side, so you can count down so the food.
Track them.
Yeah, so you just put a dice on each side.
Because the way that I thought was like, oh, you could maybe it's like a joker and you have it in the card, and then if you draw it, it's kind of like the tarot of like depending on which way up it is when you draw it, it either counts as an extra ambush or an extra food.
That's a cool use of it. I had never thought of that. I'm still
I know that tarot is like if you draw the 6 of cups but it's upside down, it means this, but if it's the right way up, it means that or something. So Joe Baby, here's an example. The King of Diamonds says, gathering storm. Storm clouds gather in the distance. Hopefully you can stay ahead of it. Doesn't tell you one way or another what that means. It just gives you a prompt for you to role play around or for you to world build with your Dungeon Master.
You could definitely tell I did the art for all these cards because some of them are
some of them is like Microsoft Paint sort of style. That's a triangle with a couple of triangles on the top. That's not the greatest of artwork. Whereas other ones, this one's very nice. This one is a planetary system.
That's one of the best cards to draw.
This one says changing fate is the Ace of Hearts. At the end of this journey, you can skip one of the played days as though it never happened. Maybe it was a dream. So now you can be like, oh, thank God, I didn't get sick in the first place. So one of the cool things about this system is that you basically can draw all of the cards. You can be like, okay, this is the journey. We'll lay it out card by card. This is going to be the journey. Now let's go through and actually work out what's happened, like put some narrative in it. Because otherwise you go through, if you do every card at a time, you go, oh, a storm cloud, and then you play out all of that, and then you draw this one and you're like, now we have to retcon the fact that we just played out the entire storm. So yeah, you could, I think the better way to use is to like lay out the card and be like, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. Now let's maybe then at that even you could reorder them or whatever. As long as these events happen, they're going to happen in this order. Can we survive becomes like a little bit of a mini game. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was really supposed to be open-ended to be able to use however you want it to. Yeah, and that's why the prompts, it's like you meet a merchant, but it's like no name, not even really a picture of the merchant. No. So it's like, all right, me as a DM, I can use one of my merchants, or hey, player, do you have a merchant that your character might know? Yeah.
Ace of Spades, waterlogged. Your pack accidentally slips into a stream, destroying half your food supply round up. Oof. Brutal.
Yeah, that one's a bad one.
So there you go, Joe Baby. It is called the Traveling Deck. And if people want this, they can get it on your website.
On the website, yeah. There
you go. And then we got a question from This Wild Soul, which was one of the fans that I actually met in Utah at the mall. She came by the event to say hello. This Wild Soul asks, will Andy / We Geek Together be at the Ren Fair in Vegas in October?
Fantastic question. Off the top of my head. I will say we have 33 outside events we have planned this year, which is a ton. I have somebody who's over my outside events specifically. So what we do though is we post on our website for a month and a half in advance. Here are the events we're going to. And we sometimes even put it in our social media. So as we get closer to that event, no doubt we will know for sure if we're going. Sometimes we don't even know until like the month before because we have to get approved as vendors, and every event's different. So
keep an eye on We Geek Together on Instagram, TikTok. What socials do you mostly use?
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok, we post the same things on there. And then our website, we update the front page of our website for news updates all the time. Also, the store Discord, we also post on our store Discord quite a lot.
There you go. So if you want to know, keep an eye on those places. We're all out of questions. I just want to chat about one more thing that I remembered before we wrap this up. I want to talk about your dad because he's a super cool dude, and he was a lot of fun, and he was super hospitable when he was constantly coming up to me. Anytime he'd see me, he'd be like, "Have you eaten? There's food in the green room. I've made shelter. There's food in the green room, whatever." And then not only that, but he had this fantastic character that I saw him playing at one point. We managed to Ben and I were there, Ben from Viva, to film like a documentary thing, which you guys will see at some point when Viva's done editing it. But Ben and I managed to get some footage of your dad playing this pirate merchant haggler guy, and he had this cart of goods, and he told me, like, basically anytime that somebody comes back to the store with like a returned good, because obviously you're a store, goods get returned. Anytime something gets returned to the store, he takes the item and puts it aside to be put in this like haggle situation. And he had this cart of like amazing journals and like leather bags and pouches and satchel bags, and he had like some of the LARPing stuff like wands and things and all sorts of stuff from the store. And then he goes around people and he's like, anything from the trolley take your fancy, there's no price tags on anything. And the idea is you start with a really low amount, and the few times that I was following him around watching him do this, the person always starts with like a reasonable, like, they're like, "Oh, this is a really nice journal, I'll give you $20 for it." And he goes, no, this is haggling, you got to start low. And it's exactly the scene from Monty Python's Life of Brian, where the guy's on the run from a big crowd of people, and he wants a fake beard from the fake beard merchant, and he goes, "How many for this?" And she goes, 3 shekels, and he gives her it, and he goes, no, you can't just give me the money, you got to haggle. And he goes, "I don't care about haggling, I just want the beard." It was exactly that scene. Your dad's like, no, don't start with $20, you got to start with like $5. And so the guy goes, "Okay, I'll give you $5 for it." And then your dad goes, "$5?" All mock offended. He's like, that's you can't offer $5, what a ridiculously low amount. "I won't sell it to you for any less than $20. He comes back with the amount that they suggested. And then he goes, and now we sort of meet somewhere in the middle. Obviously, you get to like $8, $12, whatever, and he won't go any lower. So then he's got a big dice with him, and he gives you the dice and says, "Roll a persuasion check, add your persuasion modifier, whatever you think that is, just arbitrary number, and if it's high enough, he gives you it for the lower price, and like you can buy the haggled item." So you're getting this show, you're getting this experience, you're getting a sale that you wouldn't have otherwise got because he's going up to random people in the food mall and stuff who weren't necessarily in the market for a book but are now buying something. So you're winning because you're getting a sale out of it. He's winning because he's getting rid of some stock that he wasn't otherwise getting. Everybody's getting this joyous experience, this story to tell their friends. And the extra fun thing about it is that if you roll a 1 on your persuasion check, he takes the book back from you and offers it to everybody who's listening except you for the lowest price that you originally said. So I was watching this thing. We were filming him just like for the documentary. This guy, this kid from this table comes and picks up a journal, and I was like, "Man, I really should buy a journal from these guys. These are some really nice looking notebooks and stuff." The guy starts with $5, gets up to like 12, rolls a nat 1 on his persuasion. So your dad takes the journal and says, "Who wants this for $5?" And I was like, "Yes, please." so I grabbed it. I grabbed it, and then I ended up giving it to the guy, and was just like, "Here, happy Christmas." And he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, it didn't cost me anything. Your dad didn't actually take any money from me." But it was such an all-round great experience that I thought that was worth bringing up before I let you go.
We love that bartering game because that was one of our very first things, because like we started our business, but we didn't have much to sell. We had like leather armor and that kind of stuff. So I went around my house and I'm like, "Well, I've got this old D&D book I don't use anymore," and I like kind of turned it into a garage
together. Yeah.
We're like, we need stuff to sell at our booth. And so it turned into, we were just first let people roll, but then we were like, oh, it would be funnier if we let them haggle like in real life. And so that has absolutely become one of our favorite things. We love to do that at outside events. And like you said, it's a win-win-win because we get to move our return product or damaged product. Like that's just at a game store, you get damaged
Yeah,
product or,
accumulate that, yeah.
or returned product. And so we can still make money off of it. People are going to have an amazing story. And yeah, the Nat 1s and the Nat 20s are especially the most funny because like you'll get it for a crazy discount, or your buddy's going to get it and they're going to hold it over your head for all this time that they got it and you didn't get it because he rolled a Nat 1. And so yeah,
So good.
the
And he had this sign
so
on it.
fun.
It was like the traveling pirate merchant or whatever. And your mum came up to him at one point and was like, "You've got the wrong sign on." And it said like the traveling haggling healer or something. Is there another version of it that's him healing? I think it's his healing potions, which is him selling confectionery and drinks and things, right?
Yeah, we had another food cart that was going around literally just selling snacks for people. And
Right.
so I guess he just, in his haste, just grabbed the wrong sign. So,
And he calls himself the healer because that's amazing. Yeah, I was like, oh, I want the story behind the healer, but I never got the chance to actually ask him what that's about. So that's him selling snacks because you're healing yourself with chocolate and drinks.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. What a cool idea. Man, love your family. You're so good. And your dad, your mum and dad were both at one point or another, like individually, were like, "Oh, we should come to New Zealand and do this." And of course, I was dismissing it as like, "Oh, yeah, of course, like it's all talk. Nobody's ever going to do this." But on like the last day, your dad like sat me down and went, "What do we have to do to make this work in New Zealand? How do we do this?" And I was like, "Are you serious? Like, I don't know. Like, I ain't the logistics man like Andy is. The concept of doing something even remotely of this scale just makes my brain bleed. Like, I have no idea how you would do this." He goes, "Oh, I'd love to do it." And I was like, "Look, let's be honest then. If we're going to be talking logistics here, if we're going to be honest about all of this, I don't think it would work in New Zealand." He goes, "Why not?" And I says, "We don't have the nerddom infrastructure to hold it up to get 1,500 people. I don't think you'd find that in New Zealand. New Zealand's numbers are much lower. I don't know what the population of Utah is, but it's probably a hell of a lot more than all of New Zealand, let alone just Auckland." He goes, "Yeah, we wouldn't need 1,500 people though. Like we're not like starting a store there. We just have an event." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's got to be it doesn't have to be enough to like break the world record, but it still has to be enough to make it worth your while coming all the way to New Zealand for it." And he goes, "Yeah, let us worry about that." I was like, "Okay, well, I'll talk to the Viva guys, see if they have any input about maybe doing something of this scale, like a big old New Zealand event at some point, but." Who knows? Joe may be saying, "Australia, come to Australia, come to West Island."
The hardest thing, honestly, the biggest hurdle is a venue. Once you find that venue, things get really a lot more manageable. So if that's the big thing. Like the mall was our lucky ace in the hole because the mall's like, "Yeah, we'll do it, and we're not going to charge you an arm and a leg." Because I talked to convention centers and they're like, "Yeah, for something like that, 10 grand pretty easily, 20 grand. The Salt Palace charges $500,000 for the people who run FanX, which FanX, which now I understand why you're charging like $60 to $80 per ticket because it's $500,000 just to use that building, which is insane to think about. So
That's crazy.
If we have a venue, suddenly, all right, we can get some dungeon masters together and put on some zany costumes and have a good time.
Wow. I'll have to keep an eye out on venues then, for venues around Auckland or venues around New Zealand that we could use. There's there's a few that they use for Armageddon. Armageddon's our version of a convention. It's basically a very tiny little nerd con that happens a couple of times a year, and it's the sort of thing where you go to it, you wander around for a couple hours, and then you're like, "I've seen everything, and I'm going home," kind of thing. Not like Gen Con with 80,000 people attending and several days of stuff going on, and you're still missing out every single time. Armageddon's it'll do, and it usually uses. There's a couple of venues in Auckland that they use for that sort of thing. So who knows? Maybe in the future we see a We Geek Together New Zealand event.
We'd love to.
That'd be great. All right, well, let's wrap up then, so I don't keep you longer than I said I would. One more time, where people can find you, anything that you want to push, anything that you're promoting.
Heck yeah. Thank you. We're We Geek Together. We post on pretty much all social media platforms, so you can find us on your favorite one. We're really excited for our YouTube stuff that's coming up. I think next week I'm releasing a video of like what it's like to live a week as a game store employee. Like, what do you do as a game store employee? That's pretty,
Nice.
I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then we have our website, wegeektogether.com, where you can buy a lot of our in-store merch that either we make or we get with other local vendors to make. So you can buy it online, including the traveling deck. Thank you so much for showing that thing off. It means a lot.
Pleasure.
And and keep an eye out on those outside events, because we are doing a lot of outside events this year just here in the States. So if you're anywhere in the States, you might be able to see us. Even if you're not in Utah, we might be coming to an event near you.
That's awesome. Somebody in the chat is asking if you have the Discord link to your Discord. They'd be happy to take it as well. So is there an easy way of getting the Discord? Is your Discord linked from your website, presumably?
Yeah, you go to our website. There should be an easy place to find our social medias at the bottom.
Right down below me, www.wegeektogether.com. Couldn't be any simpler. And go into there and find the Discord link through the website. Cool. If you are here from We Geek Together's community and this is your first time meeting me or seeing who I am, I'm Robert Hartley, GM. You can see that listed beneath me how to spell that, HARTLEY. I'm roberthartleygm.com for my website. All of my social media is linked on there. I've got a million of them. Pretty much every platform that exists, I'm Robert Hartley GM on there, even if I don't fully use it. So usually when a social media pops up, I grab the handle for it quickly, just in case it pops off. I always want to have the same handle on everything. So Robert Hartley GM on everything. I do Dungeons & Dragons content creation full-time, mostly with Viva La Dirt League, but also under my own right as well. Thank you so much to all of the followers that came in, the 5, I think, raids that we had throughout the stream today. Thank you very much for all of those as well. And don't forget, if you're in my Discord, to vote for Robert, because tonight is the return of the voting. 4 years ago, I set up a Discord. I made it tavern and fantasy village themed. I named myself the mayor of the town. Some people started challenging me, saying that I was more of a dictator than a mayor. So they were going to overthrow me and take over the mayordom. And I said, "Good luck. I'm the mayor for the next 4 years. I won't be up for re-election for the next 4 years." All of my fans jumped on that date, made me promise an actual date in 4 years' time, and now 4 years has actually come around, and they have remembered the date the entire time. And today is the day when I'm up for re-election. So vote for Robert for mayor. If you don't, I'll throw a hissy fit and stop streaming and making content. And that's my threat. I'm campaigning. I'm campaigning on a platform of threats and childishness. I may actually kick all of my mods who are up against me for mayordom. I may kick them out of the Discord before the vote opens in exactly 6 hours' time from now. So yeah, good luck running against me when you're not even in the Discord.
That just like every good politician.
Yeah, exactly. As we wrap this out, is there anyone on Twitch that you would like to raid? I always like to give it the option to my guest. Is there anyone online right now that you want to throw a raid to?
I need to get on Twitch more because I know zero about Twitch. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. I will find somebody who's online. Let's see. GM Workshop's doing some Baldur's Gate 3. We've got Hero Zone playing some Dungeons and Dragons. Let's go with Hero Zone. I think they're doing some sort of Vecna book giveaway by the looks of it. Let's raid Hero Zone, everybody.
The new Vecna book.
Yeah.
We just got those in the store.
Give some love to the peoples, and I will see you in the next one. Looks like I've got my hit dice spent. I've got the I've got my spell slots back, or whatever happens on a short rest. I've got my monk key points back. I think the short rest is over, and we need to continue on our journey to the Obsidian Shore.
Heck yeah, I'm excited.
See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Hi there. If this is the first video you've watched of my stuff, check out more videos over here. I do D&D related content all the time.